So I married a film critic.
Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic. I'm your co-host Julia.
And I'm Barry the Film Critic. Aloha, everyone.
And we decided to watch What Dreams May Come from 1998 with Robin Williams and Annabella
Sciorra. Yeah.
I'm a doctor. Don't move.
The moment that comes for everyone. Has come for Chris Nielsen.
You've died, Chris.
If heaven is a place where you know only joy.
Oh! Boy, I screwed up. I'm in dog heaven.
You're creating an entire world here, from your imagination, from anything you want.
Where you feel no more fear.
I'm gonna drown.
You can't. You're already dead.
Oh.
And anything you can imagine is real.
It's your world!
Could you let go of the love you left behind?
I need Annie. That'll change in time.
Time does not exist here. And wherever it went, it's not gonna make me need Annie any less.
And how far would you go
You never see her.
I'm her soulmate.
to get it back?
I can find her.
Your wife, love you is strong.
You just get me there.
Robin Williams,
It's not about understanding. It's about not giving up.
Cuba Gooding Jr.,
You find her. You can do it. I believe in you.
Annabella Sciorra,
I'm still here, babe. I still exist.
What dreams may come.
This is the first time you and I have seen this in a long time.
I remember seeing it when it came out. I think I saw it in theaters.
I saw it at the Continental in Denver, Colorado, which is one of the biggest screens they got. And it was a transporting experience. The scenes of, just to jump to it, the scenes of heaven with people floating around. I remember just staring dumbly at this giant screen, like, oh, like it was an amazing experience, visually speaking.
So what month in 98 did it come out?
Well, the funny thing is it came out, I think, October. It was a fall release, but it was 2 months before Patch Adams, which is one of the biggest hits that Robin Williams ever had.
And he's a doctor in both of these movies.
And there's a scene very early in this movie that feels like, is he trying out Patch Adams? Like, he's got a scene where he's really whimsy and cutesy with a kid in his care, and he's wearing the glasses. Like, this feels like a Patch Adams scene.
Okay, so I think it was must have been my freshman year of college that I saw this movie. Yeah, I do remember seeing it in the theater, and I remember being really blown away at the time.
Did you cry your eyes out?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I cried tonight, so I'm sure I bawled back then.
Yeah, it happened to me once tonight. Once.
Okay.
I wanted more, but
okay.
We'll get into that.
All right, so briefly, this movie is about just a tragic story.
Yeah. Before the end credits are done, we got a wedding and a funeral.
Yeah, we do. We lots of funerals actually.
Yeah, the body count is very high in this film.
But it's about two people who fall in love. They get married. They're basically soulmates.
That's Chris and Annie.
Chris and
Dr.
Annie.
Chris Nielsen, played by Robin Williams, and Annie, played by Annabella Sciorra.
And they, get married. They have kids. They have a beautiful life together. And then the kids tragically die in a car accident.
Off screen.
And then tragically, 4 years later, Chris dies in a car accident. And he goes to some heaven type place. Just to say my thoughts about it, I think it's purgatory a little bit where he goes. Because there's no God. Anyways, we can get into that later.
Yeah, I mean, if it's between, what we think of heaven and being, like, stuck in Lake Como with Cuba Gooding Jr., then yes, it's hell. It's definitely hell.
I know. I just, this world is not heaven. But anyways, Chris goes there, and then his wife kills herself, and he basically has to go through hell to get to her. And so that's the whole movie in a nutshell.
It's based on this novel by Richard Matheson. It was written in 1978. I'm kind of familiar with it just because I love Matheson. He was a Twilight Zone writer. This is one of the few non-sci-fi or horror things he ever wrote. And the film is mostly faithful to the novel. The novel did not have the angle of Chris's wife being a painter, and therefore heaven looks a lot like her paintings. I'll say really quickly that there's a lot to say about this film. Vincent Ward is the director. He's a New Zealand filmmaker. He did a film called Map of the Human Heart with Jason Scott Lee. I got to interview Scott Lee a little while ago, and Jason Scott Lee was telling me he remembered, because they've remained friends over the years, and he said that he visited Vincent Ward when he was preparing to make this film, and he said he went into his office and there were just Renaissance paintings everywhere. Losing themselves into it's a film that really it's interesting. I mean, it's not that I really want to talk about it, but like Williams did a film called Toys, which is very inspired by the art of Magritte. So in this case, you really get the sense that they were really trying to, just be very precise in making it look as much like the texture of a painting, not just the look of it, but the painterly texture of it at times. But can we go back a little bit to the beginning?
Let's go back to the beginning.
Thank you.
So they meet, their boats basically run into each other.
Yeah, let's talk about this because like yourself, like I haven't seen it in so long. There's so many things I forgot about. Yeah, so they meet cute by their boats dunking into each other.
Yeah. What, in Europe?
I guess. I mean, it looks. I guess it's Europe, and it's something we noticed immediately. I mean, Robin Williams has one of the worst. There's a couple bad wigs in this movie, but Williams. I get it. It's supposed to be a long time ago. He had more hair. I mean, we look at pictures of Williams as, Mork from Mork. He had more hair, but still, like, this is
a bad wig.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is really ridiculous. And they could have just had the same freaking hair throughout the whole film. Maybe not Annabelle Sciorra, because at one point, her character
her hair has to change.
Yeah, she goes through tragic dimensions. Her hair has to change. But really, I mean, like, if you look at pictures from us 20 years ago, we basically have the same hair.
Exactly. My hair has definitely changed more than yours. But, like, yes, Robin Williams did not have to wear that ridiculous wig.
It's insane. It's. I mean, it looks like it's growing as we watch it. It's so big.
And you can see, like, the sun like shining through parts of it. And it's like all different lengths.
It's embarrassing.
Bizarre.
It's so weird because then a couple minutes later, there's a modern day scene where he and Annabelle Sciorra, I think they're washing a car in slow motion. There's a lot of water.
There's a lot of water.
And
it's a lot of rain.
It's in slow motion. There's a lot of slow motion, which we'll get into. But anyway, that's the first time we see him with his regular hair and her with her regular, their Williams and Sciorra, their 1998 hair, and they look fantastic. It's like they should have just had the same hair throughout the film. Like, you don't need to.
They get married and he's wearing the wig at the wedding. It's like, what are you doing? Costume people. Yeah. Seriously.
It's embarrassing because Williams did not. It just.
He's got enough hair at other places.
Oh my
they
God.
didn't need to add more to the top of his head.
They're both very youthful looking people. I mean, you just make the clothes a little goofier if you want to establish that it's the 70s or the 80s, but don't do the hair. It's embarrassing. Yeah, that's right. It really gets off on the wrong foot because it's like, again, the problem is also...
Because it's so obvious, because it pulls you out.
It's so obvious. And the other problem, of course, is that this is one of the most iconic movie stars ever. We know what he looked like in the 70s and 80s. He did not look like this. This is so false. But anyway.
Okay, so they meet cute and then meet up again. And she's just... She's so beautiful. Just the hair. She's got the really pretty outfit. Everything's blowing in the wind. And he is just taken with her. And it's funny because, he's a little goofy when they meet, and she's kind of clumsy. So they're perfect.
They're a match.
They're a match.
Yes, clearly. Yeah, they're supposed to be soulmates. Like, okay, we kind of get it. I think the movie could have dug a little bit deeper there. They make each other laugh a lot, and Williams, I assume, is just going off script like crazy to make Annabelle Sciorra crack up, which is fine.
Well, I did read that she originally didn't want to do this part because she thought it would be too sad. And then when
she was right.
Yeah.
that's a very good
Then she read with Williams and realized, okay, he's going to lighten it up a little bit. But I don't know if he lightens it up
not enough.
Enough.
Although I mean what's the alternative that he's I mean it's this movie already has a lot of very glib one-liners, which we'll also get into.
Yeah, he doesn't need, I'm not saying he needs to lighten it up, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a dark film.
It's so dark. I mean, even the things about this movie that are whimsical. It's a heavy-handed film, which again I feel like we're jumping a little too close to that. But let's
Okay.
just get into it. So it's established that they're in love. They get met. Blah blah blah.
And
We
now
quickly meet their kids.
Yeah, their kids are already like in high school.
Yeah.
The son at least is.
Yes.
And the daughter must be in junior high. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. She has a very boyish haircut. So it's like, I don't know how old she is. I mean, who knows? She could just be.
I feel like she's the better developed character because I feel like we see a lot of her, whereas with the son, it's a lot of talking about him. And in this case, we actually spend time with her, and I feel like I like the character.
The son has like one major scene that they keep going back
or even
to.
just one scene, really. Just where it's the
I
two
mean,
of
they
them
go
talking under the
back.
tree.
They go back and forth to that
Yeah.
scene, and then the daughter has a couple.
Yeah,
She's got 2 good scenes when she's alive.
There's a lot of flashbacks in this film. And if it's forgive us if it sounds confusing to even listen to us talking to the film. I mean, this movie is it's only partially linear. It's constantly going back and forth. Flashbacks, dream sequences, fantasy sequences within real sequences in real time. It's
In slow motion.
in slow motion, lots and lots of slow motion. Yeah, it's strange because this was a big, expensive studio film, but it feels experimental. It definitely feels like an art film that just happened to have this $70 million budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the scene where we meet the kids, they're basically having breakfast, and you can feel the tension in the room. It's like Chris he's in a suit now, so we're like, oh, he's a professional guy, and we find out he's a doctor, and she's an artist, and she's obviously a little bit more whimsical with the kids, but the son is not happy with the dad, and the nanny takes them to school, and that's the last time they see their kids alive.
Yeah.
So it's
hence that's what Williams tells us in the voiceover. Yeah,
yeah. So then the first funeral happens.
yeah. The first of
double
many
funeral
funerals in this movie. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think they just fast forward to like 4 years after that.
yeah. Not a lot. I got to say, the movie does get to the supernatural elements pretty quickly, which is probably smart. Yeah, because there's a bit of business at the beginning establishing that Williams is a doctor, and again, I mean, it feels very clearly Patch Adams was the next movie Williams was going to make because he was already playing the part.
Yeah,
But-
well, that's after this part I'm talking about,
Yeah.
because it's 4 years later, and you see that he's a pediatrician, and she's at a gallery,
Yes,
and
with a new haircut
or a new
wig rather.
and they're like, it's our double D day, and it's our 4th one, it's time to celebrate, so we don't really know what that means, but clearly she's still having a hard time keeping things together, like mentally, even though we don't know the extent of it. And she calls him at work, and he has to like walk her through how to pick pieces for this art show.
And the thing that's so Patch Adamsy and a little too much whimsy for this movie, he's on the phone with her while he's seeing a patient at the same time, thinking, this is the worst doctor ever. Everything.
Well, the mom in there is just like giving him the death stare.
Yeah, but
She's so
he's
ticked.
He's seeing a patient. He's like, put your hand over your mouth. He's trying to help her get through her migraines. Meanwhile, he's on the phone helping his wife with her art project. I'm like, man, like everything everyone said about, oh man, I can't stand Patch Adams. Like, I'm thinking, yes, this is this kind of whimsical nonsense. Yes.
Yeah, but obviously it's been 4 years, and he's still like, he's figured out a way to help her cope with life.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what the film is trying to convey. It's like he will drop everything when she's having a rough time.
Sure. Yeah.
And we find out later why. But
Yeah.
then that's the night, he's going to do her a favor for her show. And there's a car accident in front of him in the New Jersey tunnel or something, and so he gets out to like help people, and then a crazy stunt car, like, I mean, nobody sees that there's like traffic up ahead, and they
Yeah.
don't stop, and so this car just like runs him over,
It's a
basically.
very well staged scene. I mean, yeah, I like it. I think it's scary because it's almost Jacob's Ladder. He's Williams' character, Chris, he's running into this tunnel. He knows there's an accident. He hears a baby crying. He's trying to get a woman out of her car. The car's flipped over. And in the midst of his trying to help her, another car just flips in the air and presumably lands on him. It's great. It's intense. It's scary. It nicely, gets us into the second act of the film, which is where we because of the visuals, we eventually realize that he's no longer with us. He's Williams has gone Sam Wheat on us.
Well, Sam Wheat.
He is. Hey,
No, that's true. That's a good.
It's because the body is there, and and he's like, hey, there I am. It's that kind of a thing. And we're the audience is always we're going, oh, okay, we get it. We get what this visual language is telling us.
So I should mention that when the kids get in their car accident, that Annie also they say, are you going to take us to school? And she says, no, I have to be at the gallery. And that's why the nanny drives them to school. And then the gallery is also the reason that Chris is like doing this thing for her. So, all right, just so we understand the guilt that this woman feels.
Yeah. This film is very hard on this character.
Yeah. I mean, tragedy after tragedy. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So Robin Williams is now Sam Wheat.
Well, the other thing that reminded me a lot of Ghost, and also of a movie I like a lot, a Spielberg film that's very underrated, I think, called Always, a similar film where the male protagonist is dead and the female protagonist is sort of pining for him, but sort of moving on with her life. And in that case, it's Holly Hunter, who you've confused for other actresses recently. Holly Hunter.
Oh my gosh.
One of my favorite moments in this podcast, actually. So, no, I'm kidding. So Holly Hunter in that movie, Always, her boyfriend, played by Richard Dreyfuss, is dead. So Dreyfuss spends the rest of the movie doing scenes with her. And it's that sort of thing where she's like looking straight ahead. And he's like, remember me, think of me, be with me, and she has to pretend as an actress that, Richard Dreyfuss isn't screaming in her ear. Same thing here. Like, there's all these scenes. So many scenes. Again, like Annabelle Sciorra, why she wasn't Oscar nominated for this. If for nothing else, the scenes where Robin Williams is inches from her face. She's looking straight ahead and he's like caressing her face. She's like, remember me, don't let me go. I'm thinking like, wow, impossible. Because it's, for one thing, this isn't a comedy.
Yeah.
The other thing is like, that's that kind of focus.
I was watching her during these moments because he does it at his own funeral.
Right.
Like trying to like touch her face or getting really close to her face.
Yeah.
And then he does it to her when she's writing, I don't know, journaling, because her therapist is like, you should journal. And she's like, this is bull, this is not even helping. And the craziest part about that scene is when he's whispering in her ear, like, I'm still here. I exist. Like, this is Chris. I exist. And he gets her to write it, and it's in like chicken scratch. Right. And it's like, okay, no wonder this woman is slightly insane. Like, look what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what, we didn't say Cuba Gooding Jr. is introduced after Robin Williams dies.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. Cuba Gooding Jr., he's introduced as a blurry effect, visually striking. I love it. And
is he naked?
I was going to ask you that. I think he is.
I think
it's blurry, naked Cuba Gooding Jr. I think Rod is letting his tidwell just like
totally
all over the place.
I was going to say.
It's crazy because he's like dancing around and like, I can only imagine what the real outtakes are like of Cuba Gooding like dancing around naked while they added this digital blurry effect.
Maybe he's wearing some like tiny biker shorts.
Oh, I think he's naked.
No, but for the movie. I think he's naked in the movie, but on the set, maybe.
Oh, I think he just like.
You just think he's letting it hang out.
Cuba. This is Cuba Gooding Jr. Like in the '90s. Right after. He was on a roll.
Right after Jerry Maguire.
He won the Oscar for Maguire, and then he's in As Good as It Gets with Nicholson, and then this movie. So yeah, I'm sure Gooding's like.
He's like, I'm naked in all these movies. So why not another one?
Why not? It's me. I'm Cuba.
Yeah. Okay. So Chris is still just like following her around in the house with her. He goes with her to his own grave site, and that's the moment. Like he asks Cuba, like, how long does this go on? And he's like, until you stop wanting to torture her.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my God.
And the movie visualizes this because Williams once again, and again, like he's
like, I'll never leave you.
To be very clear about this, Williams and Shiora are excellent in this. They are excellent. They are going above and beyond. They are hitting.
If they weren't excellent, this movie would be terrible, unbearable,
because
unwatchable.
the film is all over the place. It's a bit of a jumble tonally. It's taking all kinds of artistic, whimsical choices, and some of them are really arresting, some of them aren't. But Williams and Shiora are grounding this because they're cutting very deep into these characters. These are painful performances to watch because they're clearly going some places emotionally that are very honest. But to your point, the scene in question where he's next to her and he's
at his own gravesite.
His own gravesite, and she finally flips out because she's tired of hearing his voice, and he says something effective like, "I will never leave you," and she flips out. And then it's kind of hilarious, but it's not meant to be that way. Williams immediately turns around and goes, "Okay, bye," and he goes to the afterlife. Like, okay,
he's like, "All right, I'll leave you alone," and you're like, "Wow, what? You had to wait for her to like freak out?" Yeah.
And it also it doesn't endear the character to me in terms of, there's a lot of talk about soulmates and how he loves his wife and I don't know. After a while, I found him to be overbearing, to say the least.
Well, there's a lot of guilt because of what happened in the 4 years that we haven't seen yet, and so that's why when we see this moment, it is a little bit like, dude, what is your problem? Like, she's never going to get past this if you don't leave. How is she supposed to live her life? Well, and we find out she literally can't. Yeah.
So we get into the heaven sequence, and it's established that this heaven it's basically Chris immersed in one of his wife's paintings, literally. And it's a world
the main painting that she's like, this is where we're going to go.
Yeah.
That she'd already envisioned, like, there's our dream house. Here's this bluff that we're going to live on.
Yeah, this is where the film, every film, it kind of like inches towards a scene when you go, okay, this is what the movie is. And here it's, Williams is in this world where if you squint, it looks like a real world, but really it's
paint.
The visuals, I got to say, for a movie that won the Oscar in '98 for its visual effects, I think the visual effects are still beautiful, still vivid, they still work. He's in this world where it's like this blobby painting, but you could tell it's a beautiful painting. And every time he steps or grabs something, there's just a gush of acrylic. His dog reappears, and then Cuba Gooding Jr. appears in this like preppy white outfit, and he's walking on water. It's as goofy as it sounds. What did you think of the music by Michael Kamen? Do you like the music in this?
I never thought about it.
I think it's a little overly insistent. I could have done with a lot less of it, but whatever. It's trying to give us a sense of how grand all of this is, as if we didn't know from the visuals. And I got to say, like, this part of the film, I remember just, as I said at the top of this, I remember watching this in the theater and just being just dumbstruck by the beauty of it, by the ambition of it. There's a scene where, to not jump too far ahead, but Gooding's character, sort of a guide, if you will, who we learn more about later. He basically teaches Williams the laws, the rules of this world, and one of which is that Williams could fly. So there's a scene where Williams' character takes a big leap off of this impossibly tall mountain, and you could tell. It's not. There's no CGI here. Clearly they had somebody who's a base jumper, take this impossible leap, and obviously we don't see him pull the parachute cord, but it's incredible. That's one of my favorite visuals in this film. He's falling through a waterfall.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
It's incredible. It's so incredible. There's constantly going back and forth between Andy painting in the real world and feeling tortured and feeling alone. And as she paints, the world that Williams is being affected by it, impacted by it. It's evolving because of her artistic touches and her grief. Yeah, and it's interesting.
Cuba Gooding Jr. What's his character's name?
What is his name? I think it's is it Albert?
I'm not sure, but he's basically
Albert.
Yeah. Okay, so Albert's giving him the lowdown of where they are, and he basically says, our minds, like what we think, that's what reality is. It's not your body. He used the metaphor of you live in a house, but you're not your house.
Drink up. Just think it's coffee and it will be.
coffee. Paint. Acrylic.
Why is it so hard? Look, your brain is meat. It rots and disappears. Did you really think that's all there was to you? Like you're in your house right now. You're in your house. It doesn't mean you are your house. House falls down, you get out and walk away.
But it looks like I rebuilt, huh?
You see a body because you like seeing one. We're seeing what we choose to see.
That's same as like if your body dies, your mind is still alive, basically.
Basically. I don't know how much of this is carried over from the Matheson novel, but this is Ron Bass. Ron Bass, who wrote the screenplay. Bass won, of course, the Oscar for writing Rain Man. He's a great writer. He also wrote one of my favorite films of the 90s, which is The Joy Luck Club. He adapted the Amy Tan novel. And by the way, Rosalind Chow is in this, but we'll get to that in a second. So the dialogue in this movie, it's, especially in this portion, it's really glib and cutesy.
Oh, yeah, because he's like, where's God? He's like, God's up there just telling us he loves us. And that's the only mention of God. And it's just like, whatever. He's
It's
up
kind
there
of
somewhere.
a big concept to gloss over. And it's fine if the movie doesn't want to talk about it, but then just don't even bring it up, because this is not the way to handle that.
Yeah, because I thought I'd rather this be a world or a, I don't know, universe where God is just not even a concept, because when you're in this world, or I don't even know where we're at, I think it feels more like purgatory to me. But because they still have to do things. There's still like a mission. To me, if you're in heaven, that's it. You know, there's not like a mission that you have to keep proving yourself or doing things. And this world that feels like there's still things you can do, and you can still decide to go back and be reborn. So it doesn't feel heaven to me. And I think it would have been better to just not even ask where God is.
The movie presents a salad bar of theology, all sorts of ideas pulled from all sorts of religions. At one point, Cuba Gooding tells him, we all get our own universe. So the universe is big enough, this world is big enough for everyone to have like their own place or their own plot of acres of land or whatever it is, or their own world. And the thought that I wrote down is, so basically this is hell. Because this, I mean, I've always said,
because you'll be alone,
completely alone. I mean, this is lame, because I mean, after a while, I mean, how many times can you, at one point Williams is able to make an inanimate bird fly, changes the wings, changes the trajectory. And I think, well, this is not that interesting.
You're going to do that for eternity?
Eternity.
I mean, no.
Of course he's lonely. Of course he doesn't want Cuba.
He has his dog.
Yeah, he's got his dog, and he's telling Cuba, like, are you going to come back? Like, well, of course. Like, be lonely. I mean, this is a guy who's, like, around a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I even watching it tonight, like I found the appeal of this world not very appealing. And when it ventures outside, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but when it ventures and we see other people in heaven, it ranges from people who look like they're extras from A Christmas Carol, and also people who look like they're extras from Mad Max. It's very strange.
Yeah, or Cirque du Soleil.
Cirque du Soleil, yeah. People are flying, which is a stunning thing to see, obviously. But yeah,
they're just like kind of. Some of them are just giggling a little maniacally.
Absolutely, a lot of maniacal, unmotivated maniacal giggling in heaven. Yeah, it's strange. And
riding around on those bikes that have like one huge wheel and one tiny wheel.
Yeah, very whimsical.
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next character we meet is
the Rosalind Chow character.
Yeah, Leona.
Yeah. This is it. So Rosalind Chow, who again, I suspect maybe her connection to Ronald Boss's Joy Luck Club. She was fantastic in the Joy Luck Club, and she appears here as a character who is a substitute because Albert can't be there that day to give Chris a further tour of heaven. So she's the substitute supernatural guide. Okay, and as she establishes, she's dressed like a flight attendant.
Yeah, she tells him later why.
We'll get into that.
I mean, but so she takes him to the city. She's like, "Oh, you're probably wanting to see some people." So that's when they go to Cirque du Soleil City, and they start talking, and she starts asking him about his daughter, and she's like, "Tell me one of your own stories about your daughter," and then he talks to her about playing chess. They used to play chess together.
Yeah.
And she said to him, I don't let me win. Like, I want to, when I win, I'll know that I won for real. And he said, we played chess every night for 3 months, and then she died and she never won. It's a really, like, there's a flashback, and, you know, we get to see them play and everything. And so then, I don't know, how does it come out that Leona isn't who we think she is?
She's discussing the way she looks in a way that felt really off and condescending. And also, I'd say vaguely racist, where she's talking about how I don't look this way, really. Somebody saw me and thought that Asian women were beautiful.
Well, she said, my dad saw a woman who looked just like me on a flight and said, Asian women are very beautiful. Or something.
Yeah,
and then
it just feels really off and strange.
And so that's when Robin Williams is like, my daughter?
Honey? Yeah, it's weird. And so they embrace each other. They're like, yes, it's me. And it's not the first time this happens in this film. It happens several other times. Not several other, but
no,
at least 3 or 4 other times.
Apparently in this world, you can just alter your physical appearance to look like whoever you want.
And Max von Sydow's character, who we meet later, I'm jumping ahead, but he eventually explains that it's, oh gosh, maybe you could say it better than I can. The idea that in this world, this heaven or this afterlife.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The reason
he says the reason they do this is because when you see somebody who is an authority figure in your life, if you change your appearance, you can see people for who they really are. Like their soul, basically. Yeah. So, like, if you know, like Chris saw Leona and thought she was somebody else, just some random person in purgatory, heaven, whatever, and respected her as this tour guide. Whereas if he had seen her as his daughter right away, they wouldn't have maybe had the soul connection that they had when being able to have that conversation. So I think it was more like, I think the character later on says it gets rid of hierarchies, basically.
It's so odd, though, because it's heaven. Because, I mean, look, I'm in heaven with my best friend, Mike Mitchell, and Mike one day says, like, you know, we had this podcast together. Julia! I mean, so stupid. Like, just say who you are. I mean, it's heaven. Like there's no more surprises. This is it. There's no, like, gotcha. It's the afterlife. We're dead. Just tell me what's up.
I know. Well, see, that's why I don't think it's heaven. Because he is in purgatory paying for his sins on earth. That's what I think.
Okay.
And we'll find out what his sins are. But yeah, I think he's paying for how he acted towards his children and his wife. And this is his, like, penance, if you will.
There's lots of curious things because at one point, Cuba Gooding tells Williams, like, in order to get to someplace, like, just close your eyes and we'll be there. But at other times, you have to fly. At other times, you have to travel by boat.
Yeah, you have to do all these weird things. You can't just fly.
Very inconsistent. At one point, I mean, Williams' character, Chris, wakes up. Like, they sleep in heaven. There's naps in heaven. Why would you be unconscious in heaven?
I don't know. But you know what? I think the screenplay, talking about the traveling stuff, it's like, whatever's convenient for the story, that's the way they travel.
Agreed, yeah, because I mean, it's about visualizing the impossible, and I have to hand it to him because there's a lot of arresting stuff in this film, as much as a great deal of it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I like the image, for example, of when we eventually learn why they must travel, and all these naked souls pop up out of the ocean and overturn a vessel. I love that image. Like, there's a lot of really beautiful Dante's Inferno-inspired imagery, all sorts of stuff. But does it make any sense? Not really.
Yeah, the logic is skewed. Okay.
It's screwy.
Yeah, because after this, Cuba Gooding Jr. comes back, and he basically has to break to Chris, like, hey, your wife is dead. He's like, this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever had to go through. Your wife is dead. And he's like, oh, he's like really sad, but he's like, well, where is she? Like, let's go get her. And now we can be together. And he's like, no, you don't understand. She committed suicide. Like, she's gone forever.
We're gonna go through something very hard right now. I'm with you. You're not alone. Chris, Annie's dead. She killed herself. It's nothing I ever expected.
Like I said, you don't know us. Is that kind of an occupational hazard of soulmates? One's not much without the other? But she's okay. You know, because her pain's over.
You don't understand.
No, she won't cling like I did.
No, you don't understand.
When do I see her?
Never. You never see her. She's a suicide. Suicides go somewhere else.
What are you punishing her for?
No, it's not punishment.
She suffered
No,
enough.
there are no judges or crimes here. Everybody's equal. It's just reality and the way things work.
Yeah, and the reality is suicides go to hell? No goddamn judgment in that!
You want to fight? You can hide from it, or you can understand it. What you call hell is for those who don't know they're dead. They can't realize what they've done, what's happened to them. Too self-absorbed in life that they built this world around them.
Self-absorbed? That just want to play to Annie, all right?
No, it doesn't. No, suicides are different. Suicides don't go to hell because they're immoral or selfish. They go for a very different reason. Each of us has an instinct that there is a natural order to our journey. And Annie's violated that. And she won't face it. She won't realize, accept what she's done. And she will spend eternity playing that out.
You're still saying she's in hell.
Everybody's hell is different. It's not all fire and pain. The real hell is your life gone wrong.
So I don't know, like, the total logic of this world again, but if you kill yourself, you go to hell, but not because it's a sin. You go because you can't forgive yourself for killing yourself.
It's like saying, look, you're getting fired from McDonald's. It's not because you know you dropped a McNugget on the floor and gave it to a customer. It's because we're McDonald's and we have higher standards. Like, no, it doesn't want to deal with. I feel like it's trying not to deal with a God figure. It's trying not to deal with
like morality,
or a dogma or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's. And on the one hand, fine, because this is the story of a man who dies and goes to heaven, but then must go to hell to save his wife. So I kind of get it. Like they need to have some kind of narrative roadblock to establish.
Like, why is she there?
Yeah, you can't talk your way out of this. It's not like you can go to God and make a deal. It's not like there's, like there have been other films in the afterlife where, it gets settled in a trial. This is not that kind of a film. This is a film, it's a journey. It's like it's like it's like a Homeric Odyssey. You have to go on some kind of a quest. Although, because again, it's so screwy because you have people flying, you have people walking, you have people sailing, you have people swimming. But it's established that you can go on this quest just by closing your eyes and opening, and then you're there.
Yeah, but the problem is he doesn't know where she is. So he can't just close his eyes, which... Okay, that makes sense. He basically has to sense her presence and like be led by her somehow because they're soulmates. So that's how he gets around this whole thing of like, you can't go to her, dude. Like you can't. And he says, but we're soulmates and you said you've seen things that were impossible that now have become possible. Yeah. So he's like, fine, we're going to go find a tracker. And I'm
sorry to interrupt. Okay. This is weird too because Williams, I certainly, of course, I like the angle that he is so in love with his wife, and I like the themes that are being established here, but this is also hubris. You figured heaven would not reward a guy who is so arrogant as to think like, well, I'm just going to go to hell and get my wife.
Such a huge ego.
Yes, it's strange the way the movie, all the characters are like, yeah, all right, you go. Yeah, you're going to rewrite the rules.
That's why I don't
think
it's
heaven.
It's not heaven.
All right.
Yeah, in my mind, it's not.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so they find Max von Sydow.
Playing a character referred to as a tracker.
A tracker. Yeah, and he's basically like, your love for her and the fact that you have this connection is what's going to lead you to her, and I will help you get there. But he said, you're not going to be able to bring her back. You know, like once you see that she's basically out of her mind because she has so much guilt that you're not going to be able to save her. This basically is a journey for you to go and then be like, oh yeah, that was impossible, and then come back.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting that I like, because obviously, you know, the whole love conquers all element, it's like we as the audience, we're down with that. So it's like, yeah, we believe that he's going to go there and find his wife. The detail that I like, because it's very dread inducing, this idea that if you're in hell with your wife and you're with her for more than 3 minutes, then the logic of this world and her logic, the way she sees the world, will engulf you. It will drive you mad.
It will take you over, basically.
Yeah, which is great. I like that there's, although the movie plays very fast and loose with this too, but there is at least a clock of sorts.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't just have like an unending period of time to try and get her out and save her.
Yeah. And by the way, any movie is at least 70% better if Max von Sydow is in it.
Okay, I mean,
I think it's the Von Sydow rule. I'm just going to call it right here. I'm going to TM that. I mean, I don't care if it's Strange Brew, Minority Report. I don't care what it is. He's the man. I love this actor so much. I think he's fantastic in anything and everything. He makes anything and everything plausible. By the way, this is a man who has played both Jesus and the devil.
Wow, there's only a few people that have done that.
Can you name another? I can't.
I thought you said there was somebody else in the past. Yeah.
Long dramatic pause. I'm gonna have to look that up. I can't remember who it would have been.
What's his name?
What?
Okay, you're gonna ask me to remember his name?
We actually had this conversation. It must have been a while ago.
Yeah. He's the guy who was in the Scorsese Jesus film.
Willem Dafoe?
Yeah.
He's played the devil?
I thought you told me
He's
that.
played Jesus? Has he played Satan? I don't know.
I thought you said he did.
I don't know. I mean, he's played devilish character. I mean, he was the bad guy in Wild at Heart, so I guess that's pretty close. Bobby Peru, he played that disgusting character.
Maybe I misunderstood what you said.
Oh, well.
Okay.
But hey, Willem Dafoe's awesome. Glad we got to talk about Willem Dafoe in this What Dreams May Come episode.
Okay, so they're in a boat and they're, sailing, and all of a sudden they're headed into this crazy storm. And I don't know, there's lots of flashbacks. Don't quite remember all the details of all of them, but he does keep flashing back to this moment with his son that we totally have to talk about.
Oh, man.
Because I don't know if this is their last big, conversation before the son died, but that's kind of what the movie's implying.
Yeah. It's this movie, so of course it's raining, and of course they're soaking wet because
and they're running through the woods.
I mean, I think there's more wetness in this movie than there is in Titanic, by the way. But so they're by the tree and they're talking, and it's a father-son talk.
Yeah, he's like, "Thanks for coming out with me, Dad."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the conversation goes back and forth between a fight, between being like, "I love you, son," kind of
Well, it's about the parents. He's basically failing school.
Right.
They'll probably have him in some rich private school, and he's not doing well. And the parents are like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to pull you out." And he's like, "But why, Dad?"
Yeah, and then my favorite Robin Williams line in the movie where he goes, "You're blowing it, Ian." Love it.
Okay, it just comes out of nowhere because Ian is telling his dad, basically everyone's smarter than me, and I wake up every day with this sense of dread that I'm a nobody. And he's like, "I really want to stay at this school." And then Robin Williams pulls out that line, and it's like, dude.
It's great. But I mean, to Williams's point, I mean, his son, the way he's describing his life, I mean, he sounds like such a dummy. I don't know. I had a hard time. It's like, "Dad, I mean, I just don't get reading and writing and all the stuff that you do that you're so good at. And
you're just such a smart doctor, man.
I dread a test that you could have probably written yourself, and I'll just never be as good as you because I can't read a stop sign." I mean, just I don't know. I was more on the side, maybe it's because I'm older. I was more on the side of Williams at this
dad
point.
now.
I'm like, "Oh, man, you are blowing it, Ian. You really are blowing it."
Yeah, so we basically established that this is their last big conversation. And then, so Williams is basically thinking about Ian as they're kind of in this first
in
part.
hell, which says a lot about his relationship with his son. He's thinking about his, like, that son, Ian. I'm in hell, but God, I remember that day under the tree when we're all wet. Yeah, and again, like I feel like the daughter is a much more interesting character, a better developed character. Ian is just kind of somewhere between the disappointment and the lost opportunity as a father.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And that's when all of the naked people swim up to the boat and basically capsize it.
It's a great visual. It's so cool.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's like right out of Dante's Inferno. It's it's great. Yeah,
And
it's so cool.
Yeah, everyone's like kind of drowning, and then I think that's when the flashback happens. But then they crawl up on this beach, and there are all these people just laying around.
Yeah.
And they head towards, I don't know, but it's a huge ship, and he's like, "This is the portal to hell." And there's fire, and
It's like, this is when the Titanic died. This is where it went.
yeah, basically it looks like the Titanic.
Yeah.
But then I don't know, he says it's like Robin Williams like figures out that,
This is the other big twist.
yeah, the other big twist.
Although there's a
'cause-
few of these.
Yeah, because when in that last conversation he says there's no one I'd rather walk through hell with.
Right.
And it's like,
and he looks at Cuba Gooding Jr. like, huh? Wait a second. You look nothing like my son, but...
yeah. So then he's like, Ian? And he's like, Dad. And they embrace in hell. And
The second time in this movie that turns out everyone he meets in heaven is actually one of his white children. Yes. Very strange message for this movie.
yeah.
Rosalind Chow, nope.
No, so
Yeah.
she's really a little white girl.
A little white girl, and then
Cuba
Cuba
Gooding
Gooding Jr.
Jr.
is this little white son
Yeah.
who's a disappointment named Ian. Yes.
Yeah. So they obviously,
And they're embracing, and there's these guys, again, like out of like Mad Max, like, like
Yeah.
with swords and guns.
I know, like they're having this moment, but none of the people in this world are actually doing anything. They're just kind of zombies.
They're basically extras in a movie.
Yeah.
Basically, and they're all wearing costumes that there's no coordinated effort to establish a time, anything.
No.
And whatever, I mean, okay, if it's the idea that, hell and heaven have individuals, souls from all different times and all different people in all different walks of life, okay, but here it's almost like, it was the costumer just like pointing to the room, like, pick something.
It's a very whitewashed view. I mean, besides Cuba Gooding Jr. and the other gal, I never remember any of them.
Rosalind Chow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There aren't any other like people of color.
No, it's all white people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very, very white vision. I mean, like you mentioned, like the big unicycle bike. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a 1930s version of hell, or heaven, depending on how you look at it.
I'm not feeling any of this for heaven, to be honest.
And I guess I could pause for a second and just say, like, I have a very similar response to how I felt the first time I saw it. The whole thing is so heavy, and it's unpleasant, really unpleasant at times. And at times it was unpleasant for the moments where it tries to add humor. I found myself very put off by the moments where, like even the one-liners that Robert Williams is clearly throwing out that were not in the script. But this film, it doesn't, not only is it not subtle, it's tonally bombastic. There are times where I felt like this movie was trying to strangle me with emotion, as opposed to just, I don't know. It's strange that the flashbacks are, I think, more effective than any of the stuff in heaven, and it should be the other way around.
Yeah.
We should be, if anything, they should make a case that Chris, the Williams character, they should make a case that this place is good enough that he doesn't care about this stuff. He should struggle to be that interested in his wife and his kids when he's in a world where he can fly and create anything on a whim and will never die, never grow old, will always look the same.
Yeah, it's obviously not interesting enough for him.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't give...
Or really anyone.
After Cuba Gooding Jr. gives him his quick little lesson about flying and creating, Williams, all he wants to do is be with his wife. Again, I understand that's the movie, and obviously, again, this is a story about a guy from heaven who wants to rescue his wife in hell. I get that. But at least make it a conflict, because in this case, Williams' character Chris, again, he's so arrogant and he's so single-minded. It's like, you don't deserve this place. You really don't.
I mean, that's why I don't think it's a good place to be. I don't think he's in the good place. But he's in the bad place.
I would describe Robin Williams, though. I don't think.
No, I know. That's why he's not in the good place.
I mean, the movie.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like he should. I feel like, I don't know, like this film should have been a little better catered. I don't know if it needed to be rewritten for him, but just better written in general. This isn't, for all of the incredible visual richness in this movie, and there's so much of that, I just feel like the screenplay is constantly selling this movie short in some way on a scene-to-scene basis. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes the visuals are so overwhelming in their exactness and beauty, the film gets away with it. But when it doesn't, all you hear is just like, oh, there's another clunker line. Cuba Gooding shouldn't have made that choice, or man, Robin Williams is like crying in front of a green screen. This is amazing. There are times where I'm just seeing the seams here because as good as Williams is, I didn't really like his character as much as I wanted to.
Yeah, that's fair.
As good as his performance is.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So now that it's established that Cuba Gooding Jr. is actually Ian, you know, the tracker says he can't come with us because he's going to be too distracting. You have to only think about your wife. Something
he should have said before they went on the journey in the first place. It's stupid screenwriting.
Well, but
anyway.
The tracker didn't know that it was his kid, right?
Did he know? I mean, don't they have people know, like, hey, that's Bob pretending to be Susan? Like, don't they know?
I don't know. The rules are very fuzzy in this world.
Extremely fuzzy. You would almost say it's like the screenwriter was making it up as he went along.
He's like sitting there going, how do I get around this roadblock? So he tells him, he's like, I chose to be this person because... So he's basically in the body of a mentor, like Chris's mentor in life as a doctor.
Yeah, the guy's name was Albert, and he was a real doctor. And Williams established he only knew him as an older man, never knew him as a young man, which is why he didn't recognize him when he first saw Cuba Gooding Jr. because it's like, I only know you as an elderly man.
Right.
I didn't know you when you look like Rod Tidwell.
Right. So he says, I chose to be him because he's the only other person you ever listened to. I was like,
whoa, slam.
Yeah, like, okay. And he's saying that as Robin Williams is just like going up in this, I don't know, elevator thing. And he says, don't let the tracker guy distract you. Like, you know what to say to bring mom back. So he's trying to give him some advice and just...
Now, not to jump too far ahead, but because he says that, don't you think that the Cuba/son character is aware that the tracker is not who he appears to be to Chris? Because they're all aware that, like, she may tell you one thing, but she's actually that person from the Quick Stop who didn't give you change years ago, and you're going to find that out in a moment.
But I think because it's Robin Williams, this journey is in his mind. Yeah. I think that's the logic behind it because he has to go on this journey.
It's strange too, but because and that's another problem with the movie because if it's all cerebral, where's the danger? Where's the tension? The danger, the thing that the movie establishes, it's the madness, is the fact that you're in hell and you can get stuck there, you can get pulled in there. But
I think going insane is the danger here.
That's the danger, but still, I mean, again, all these scary visuals, and we'll get to the scariest in a moment. It almost seems like it doesn't quite matter because you're not going to a literal place.
Yeah, because he keeps saying, "Well, what? I'm going to die again." So there's no physical threats ever.
And I'm fuzzy about the whole traveling thing. Why can't he just close his eyes and suddenly get to his wife? Why does he have to go on a physical Homeric journey?
Because he doesn't know where she is. How is he supposed to visualize a place he doesn't know?
But even the way he finds her, it's like he's like using the tracking of like you love her and that's how you're gonna find her, or she's thinking about you. It feels like the whole homing device of the heart.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it's just a screenplay problem.
Yes.
That they didn't fix.
Yeah.
So, all right. So they get, I guess they go on another boat and they get, okay, this is the scene I have never forgotten.
And rightfully so.
Over 20 years.
This is unforgettable. Yeah.
You know, it's all these faces just like sticking up, like basically out of dirt.
It's like they've been buried up to their face, and only their faces,
and they're all talking.
And there's miles and miles of them.
Miles and miles, and they're very close together. And there's only like one funny line where one is like, "It hasn't been a really good day."
There's a bunch of these as they get one goes like, I should have given him his 10%, like these glib jokes.
Yeah. Oh, she's like, yeah, I only ever took 30% from all my clients. It's like, are they having, is this their penance? Like, this is...
If they're bad stand-up comedians?
No, but like, are these the people, like, is this some kind of extra punishment? Because like, why can't they just be like the people in the like Titanic fire?
It's weird. And maybe it's just personal for me, because I've always found the idea, because I've heard someone has told me, many people have told me actually, that hell is the absence of God. So I think I've always found there's nothing scarier for me than the idea of being stuck in a room with no doors for eternity. Mm-hmm. That's what hell is for me. This is different because you're stuck with all these literal talking heads for miles. There's miles and miles. I mean, you look at it and it looks like there's just bumps on this never-ending road. And really, it's all these faces that are talking, and you have to step on them in order to get through them, which is a scary idea. But it's also like, that doesn't seem too bad, because at least you have people to talk to.
Yeah, I guess, but you can't.
Lots
really
and lots of people to talk to.
Around.
Yeah.
It hasn't been a really good day.
Come on, it's our private deck.
I never took more than 30% from any client.
This must be the place.
Yeah.
Mister!
Incoming! Hey, watch where you step at!
Oh, sorry.
You are rude.
Anybody got a cure?
No, man.
I'm not an animal.
Oh, sorry.
Son, welcome. Welcome, son.
Papa?
Son.
Papa?
You're Klaus. Welcome.
No.
Welcome.
You're not my dad. Sorry.
It's all right. They never come. Don't worry, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
And then he sees what he thinks is his wife's face. And there's
he thinks he sees his father initially.
Oh, yeah.
And that's played by Werner Herzog, of all people. That's Werner Herzog.
Yeah, because he's like, son? And then he's like, oh, you're not my dad.
And they give him enough dialogue. It's like, oh, cool. That's Werner Herzog. Yeah, pretty sweet.
So,
weird cameo, but yes.
Weird cameo.
Yeah.
So then he sees what he thinks is his wife, and he starts running towards her, and we see a flashback of her.
One of the many
What is
many
she
flashbacks.
in, like, the psych ward in this
Oh,
one?
man. And Annabella Sciorra, I love you, but you should have fired whoever made that wig for you.
That wig, again.
This Pat Benatar
another
wig.
horrible wig choice.
Gosh. Torture.
It's like I think maybe what they were trying to do is like she cut her own hair in like her psychosis.
Yeah, like an Ophelia sort of idea. But I mean, it's almost like they took Williams's wig from the first part of the movie and they ran over it with a car. And then they just gave it to like, here. You don't have the budget for something better.
It probably is the same wig, just
it's so
worse,
so ugly, and so often it's so clearly a wig too. It's just let these actors have their hair, put some makeup on to establish the the toils of time. You don't need to give them these embarrassing wigs.
I know.
Yeah.
But so she has a line where she says, "I feel like I'm just drowning in a sea of faces."
Yeah.
And so then he runs towards her and then just like falls through.
The ground breaks through, yeah, and we have it's a cool visual of Williams falling through all these levels of the inferno.
But through the other bodies that fall through, it looks like they shatter into millions of pieces. Like, is that the end of them?
I don't know. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense because
so is
you have
eternal torment, or do they eventually like become nothing?
It's inconsistent. There's clearly different levels of this. We're not seeing a devil figure or any kind of figure. It's just, it looks like almost like a video game level. I think it's visually accomplished enough, even now, years removed, with special effects that could have done this perhaps better. I think
I thought the effects were great.
Yeah. My point exactly. I feel
it looked like
it's
the
still
faces there were like real people intermixed with just dummies.
Yeah,
that you could step on.
But it's vivid enough.
Yeah.
Enough care went to that sequence that it's still. I agree. It's still scary. It's claustrophobic. It's an uncomfortable visual. It's and the image of Chris having to like run across this field of faces and step on people's faces.
Awful.
Yeah, it's very, very impactful. It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he falls through the ground.
Yeah, and then what? He basically finds his old house.
Yeah, which is it's weird. The visual. I mean, it looks like the pit where the Nostromo discovers the alien. It looks like where the eggs are. It looks just like that from Ridley Scott's Alien.
It's basically like their house. Just
in the midst of like Greek ruins.
Yeah. And even the inside of the house, it looks like it was set on fire and then everything was torn apart and then flooded. Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah, it's a good way of visualizing where she is at this point and what hell would be like and this is where we get yet another twist before we get to the business of Williams going into the house.
So we find out that the tracker is really the Albert.
Actually Albert.
Yeah. So obviously the tracker knows that the Cuba Gooding Jr. Albert isn't the real Albert because he's the real Albert.
Right. And the Cuba Gooding Jr. Albert's like, keep an eye on that tracker. Got a whammy of a surprise he's going to unleash on you in hell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he was like, I'm here to, I don't know, help you again.
I've always wanted to help you, and I've waited years for this opportunity. You've waited for the opportunity to take him to hell. Thanks, Albert.
I know it's weird, you know. I don't really know, but so he tells him, "You have 3 minutes to go."
Why
in.
3?
I don't know. They couldn't make it too long, but he said the madness will basically set in.
And by the way, the scene is at least 10 minutes long.
Yeah,
Let's be honest. There's no way it's just 3 minutes. Plus, there's flashbacks. It's a long sequence.
Yeah. So, what are the flashbacks that we see?
Well, it's Williams remembering more of Annabella Sciorra and that hideous wig, and it's
we find out what the D-Day is.
Yeah,
double D. Basically, he visits her in the psych ward. Where, well, I mean, it's outside, but obviously she's been institutionalized.
But it's not a Nurse Ratched situation. No. This is upper class cuckoo's nest.
This is like for very rich people. Yeah. And
this is where the wives of doctors go to when they lose their mind.
Exactly. Because she's been talking about a divorce and she's like, we're not the same. Like, why didn't you lose your mind when our children died? And he's like, I had to hold it all together, So it's kind of the classic wife goes crazy, husband has to hold it together for the family. She feels not supported. He feels like, well, we have to move on with our lives at some point. So I don't know how you felt about that.
I don't like it. No, I'll be honest. Thank you for reminding me of all that. It felt condescending. I don't like it's not just the movie's attitude towards the character, it's his attitude towards her. I don't like it. I feel like this movie is, without saying it, it's blaming her for a lot of this stuff. It's making it almost like she deserves this sort of torture, downward spiral. Yeah, I don't like it. And again, like it's a compliment to the actors, not to the screenplay. I think the actors are above and beyond, and they're giving this such pain and power. But I don't like the attitude this movie has towards her as a character. I feel it's condescending.
The screenplay basically makes Chris her savior.
Right. She needs this guy to save her from hell.
Yeah. Well, in life too.
Yeah.
Because he basically says, like, I'll give you a divorce, but I'd rather not. Like, if you can pull it together, like, let's create a new life together. And obviously they do that because they have 4 more years. They celebrate 4 double D's, before he dies. And so they're able to do it, but it kind of shows that, and she does come out of that psychosis or whatever. They never really say what it is, just that she went nuts, but she lost 2 kids in a car accident. Like, who wouldn't experience some level of just depression, all those horrible feelings that you feel if you lost both of your children
Yeah.
in one day.
And you got Demi Moore's 1990s haircut. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly, this is a tortured soul.
Yeah. And I think what, I don't know if I want to talk about this yet, but basically he abandoned her in that institution.
Yep.
You know, and he's coming back to like get her, but I feel like he abandoned her even after she came out by trying to be strong and never falling apart. Like he basically never falls apart over these kids that he lost, which makes him kind of a bag, you know, of a dad. Because even when he gets to like purgatory, my version of purgatory, he never asked about the kids.
Right.
Like, hello. So I don't know. I feel like this is his punishment, that he has to go into her version of hell, which is their dilapidated, torn up house, and try and get her out again.
For rich people, this is hell. To see your house just in tatters.
Yeah. Living alone. Okay, so we can talk about him going in. Like he goes in, he sees the house, he finds her. He pretends to be a neighbor that moved in next door.
By the way, that is from the novel. I remember that from the
okay.
Matheson novel. Yeah, he pretends to be a neighbor so he can have, you know,
create a connection.
Yeah, and it's that weird logic this movie's establishing that if you can pretend to be somebody else, you will look like someone else to other people. But
oh, do you think he looks like the neighbor to her?
I'm sure he does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he probably looks like an elderly old man. Like, hey, how you doing?
I mean, it would have been nice for them to like show that for a second, so that as the audience
and watch like the neighbor, like
no.
the movie will do the swapsies where it's like it'll be like Max von Sydow playing the role. How are you? Are you enjoying it here?
Because I get that they don't want another actor playing that part,
right? Yeah, you gotta have.
Yeah, you have to have it be Robin Williams, but it would have been nice to know if he looks like a different person to her.
It's almost in the same way, because this is something that I thought about, because there's a lot of people that mention this. Ghost, the ending of Ghost, where remember where Swayze is inside. No, where Swayze possesses Whoopi Goldberg so that he could dance with his wife.
Yes.
And many have said that a braver, better film would have shown Whoopi Goldberg caressing and kissing Demi Moore and not cheating by showing Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. Remember, because he's possessing Whoopi.
Yes.
And the movie doesn't like the movie is shy about showing us what's really going on there.
They show them touching hands, so we know.
Bold for 1990. Yeah. Ooh, they're touching hands. Anyway, sorry. Back to what dreams may come.
Yeah.
So Williams is playing the wacky next door neighbor. Hey, how you doing in hell? He goes over and talks to her about like what's going on. And he very, very slowly allows the conversation to become about his marriage with her, his memories with her.
Yeah, he says my wife killed herself.
We're getting inundated with flashbacks here.
We lost the kids, and she's just like, oh, that's really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's lots of so as an adult seeing this movie, I mean, okay, I was 18 when I saw it, but let's face it, you haven't had that much life by the time you're 18. So now being married with a kid, I really felt like you, that this Robin character, Chris, he just really blew it in life. And
I'll to pause really quick, not literally, but to pause and talking about the film, I got to say, like, one of the reasons I did not revisit this film for so long was certainly after Williams passed away. I was afraid to look at this film. I thought, oh, this is going to be such an agonizing film to look at. I'm going to be crying the whole time. Not a problem when I don't like his character, because
you're like, oh, he's nothing like this guy.
Williams, I got to say, like, for one thing, he's so good in damn near everything, really. And he's such a forceful actor. For one thing, I watch his work and I'm constantly having to remind myself that he's not with us anymore. Mm-hmm. He's just that good, which is a weird thing to say. Maybe that doesn't make any sense. But like for me, he's so eternal. The fact that he's not with us, I feel like, well, his work is so good that I'm not thinking about that the way I would some actors like Gregory Hines. But in this case, I really wanted to watch this movie and cry because, it still bothers me that he's not with us. But yeah, his character is as insufferable here as his character was in Mrs. Doubtfire. I should like this guy, but I don't. I like the movie. I like the actor playing the performance. I don't like the character. to a point where I'm worried about her. I don't like him, really.
Yeah. What was the part you did cry at? Do you remember?
The part where he's looking at the tree and the tree is being destroyed because she's destroying it in real life, and he's seeing it crumble in the heavenly world. And Williams looks so distraught. I mean, he looks like he was really crying in the scene. And I think seeing him, it also gave me flashbacks of The Fisher King, which is a better film, and that character and that performance. So yeah, that was the scene. And I remember being moved by it in the theater too, actually. Yeah, it's one of the many scenes where the actors are going above and beyond a screenplay that doesn't always deserve their efforts.
Yeah. I think I cried a little bit when she's sitting at her little like vanity and she's writing her suicide note and she looks beautiful, all done up. And you can see the suicide scars from where she had previous attempts, you know, on her wrists and stuff. And she says that she's so upset because she doesn't get to say goodbye to them, like, because they're already gone. And she's like, there's nothing left for me here. And it's just so heartbreaking.
Yeah, Williams has a really good monologue too, somewhere in the movie where he's speaking at his son's funeral, and he gives this great speech about he hates that his son is never going to meet the man that he would grow up to be.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good too.
There's good stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I feel like the cerebral stuff is not quite up to the level of the visual, which is funny because the visuals are supposed to be enhancing the cerebral stuff, but it's just not always the case.
Okay, so talk about, you know, he says to her, if you close your eyes, you can be wherever you want. And so they go to their wedding day. And he's
back in that terrible wig.
Yeah, he's back in the terrible wig. And he basically is like whispering to her, like, this is real. Like, this is, it's really me. And when they go, then they're back in hell, the hell house. And she has like a black, like, veil on, and she freaks out. It's like so uncomfortable. It's the most uncomfortable moment where you're like, dude, you are scaring her again, just like you did right after you died, and you kept trying to say, like, I'm never going to leave her. It's just, it's a very, it's like, it's too much.
He is a clingy, controlling husband who loves his savior complex that he's created for his wife. And it kind of comes out. And it's weird because I don't, you know, looking at it now, I feel like the movie's not really hiding that. Really.
Yeah.
I feel like he's very conscious of the fact that, like, I saved her, I got her through this, she needs me and I need her, and we're a couple and we're soulmates.
Yeah, but then, okay, so the part that right before he goes crazy.
Yeah.
Because he tells the tracker, he's like, I'm going back in, I'm staying with her because I abandoned her in life. And so
tell my kids I love them, even though they now look like different people.
Even though they look nothing like themselves. So he says, I abandoned her in life. I'm not going to abandon her in hell.
Yeah. And
I feel like that's his penance for being a crappy husband. I don't know. Is that what the movie's trying to say?
That crappy husband equates a lifetime in hell with the person who is there.
Like, you both go crazy.
Partly because of you.
Yeah, you both go crazy together.
Yeah.
Like, you made her crazy a little bit in life, so she's going to make you crazy in death? Is that what we're talking about?
Ditto. Yeah.
Because I mean, you know, over 20 years ago, I wouldn't have ever thought about some of these themes that they're talking about, but he really is a little bit insufferable.
I completely agree, and I don't need to say it again, but I will. It's funny. I feel like Williams has a way of humanizing these characters in a way that's almost impossible. Mm-hmm. In a very different way, it makes me think of kind of the opposite of like I love Michael Douglas, and I love that, for example, like in Fatal Attraction, his character is awful, but I like the character because of him, even though the character in Fatal Attraction is terrible and he's terrible. But I feel like he's an actor who makes me root for him in spite of the character.
He brings some humanity into it.
And I feel in the same way Williams with most things. He's interesting when he plays villains. He's played some really awful people. And that's a different thing, and that's interesting.
Yeah, because there is a side of this character that's really closed off.
Yes.
Very closed off. And I don't know why. I mean,
he's playing Peter Banning from Hook again, in a sense.
They don't.
He's a crappy father.
Yeah.
He has to go to a magical world in order to regain himself as a father. It's the same movie, basically.
It's the same
sequel to
movie.
Hook. All it needs is there's no Captain Hook in this movie, but we have a Tinkerbell figure played by Annabelle Sciorra whenever she's in that terrible wig.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, so
same movie.
He finally he wakes her up, right? It's a Romeo and Juliet ending.
It is.
Oh my gosh. Just realized it.
Yeah.
He wakes her up just as he goes into his psychosis.
Yes, because the 3 minutes that are really like 15 are now over, and he's gone. He's trapped. He's game over.
Right. And then he ends up in water again. And he wakes up back at his fancy house.
I feel like the director's like, we have so much image of Williams in that pool. Let's just cut to another great shot of him blowing some air bubbles in that big giant pool, and that'll be the transition.
Yeah, that'll be the transition. Doesn't make sense.
It not only does not make sense because so much has been established that you have to physically go to this hell, and so now he's back in his beautiful bungalow in his beautiful heaven. Yeah, and surprise, surprise, Annabelle Sciorra is there.
Yeah, and he says, "How did we end up here?" And she said, "Well, you said you just have to think of it, and you can go wherever you want."
Ron Bass, I love you, but that is some lazy screenwriting.
And I'm like, okay, so she just came out of her crazy hell psychosis, and just makes this decision. Like, there's no way she would have the wherewithal to do that.
Because as they've established, you're not even aware that you're dead if you're in hell, right? Yeah. It's almost that sense that you're in denial. So, where does this even come from? She does not know. She doesn't have the tracker or Cuba or anybody to help her.
Right. The only thing she has in the deep recesses of her brain is that painting. So I guess you could say that would be the place she would conjure in her mind because they had established that together. But I don't know any other way.
But really, let's be honest. If they're in hell and that's her decision, then it should be a literal hellscape version of that picture. It should be a version of that picture where there are naked albino people trying to pull them into the water. It should be.
Oh, you think they should stay in hell?
I don't think you can get out of hell just by looking at a picture being, let's go. No, you're in the hell version of the picture. The movie makes too much of a point that it's a journey. It doesn't make any sense. Again, to my point, they should have established early on in the movie. I mean, Cuba says it. If you can think it, you can go there. Then what's with all the, what's with all the scenes of them flying and swimming and sailing and walking?
Yeah, then there wouldn't be a movie, basically.
Right, yeah.
All right, so...
Very fast and loose with these...
The dog comes back, the kids come back. Oh, it's a great reunion for the whole family.
Yikes.
Everyone's hugging, and then the kids look like the kids. And then,
I want to stay and look like this.
I know, because now you know who I am. Okay, surprise. So...
I like it better when I look like Cuba Gooding Jr.
I mean, who doesn't want to look like that?
Right.
So she says, can we grow old here? Okay, then, so instead of just staying there, they decide they want to go back and be reborn again on Earth and try to find each other and have a second chance. I don't get it.
I was astonished by this because I did not remember it. Me neither. I mean, I'm still reeling over the fact and okay, so if you're in heaven and you look like Cuba, but you're really like a 17-year-old white guy, is that cultural appropriation?
Yeah.
There's that. But
you were struggling with
that. But
never
mind. Okay, never mind that. So, sure, whatever, fine. But then, this thing, because, look, whatever you have to say about Williams' character before, this guy went to hell to save his wife. And now they want to go back to Earth and,
I know.
Isn't that boring in heaven?
And the kids are like, yeah, that's fine. He's like, yeah, I asked the kids. They think it's fine.
It's mom and dad are going on a carnival cruise. No, you're going to have a lifetime? What if you don't?
What if you don't find each other? Yeah, what if you have other kids? Do the same kids come back?
Is it fate? Is someone going to commit suicide again? Is someone going to get hit by a car again? Are you even going to become a doctor again? Will you even be interested in sailing? Maybe you're not. Maybe you're, afraid of the water in this next life, and you never take on those boats. I mean,
well, they do meet differently when they come back, because he basically said, "If I can find you in hell, I can find you in New Jersey."
Which is, by the way, the last line in the movie. Oh my gosh, ending this movie on a bad sitcom line about New Jersey. What are you doing, movie?
I know. So then we see like two little boats bump into each other, and it's them as kids, like sitting on a dock, and they're younger, obviously.
Right, yeah.
And then,
by the way, the cute kids look nothing like Williams and Ciora. I know they're supposed to be different kids, but I don't know. I don't think.
Yeah, maybe they grow up looking different, but then when they go back to this purgatory or wherever, they can look like their old selves if they want.
It's so screwy.
I don't know. I mean, how would you have ended it?
I think the brave thing to do and the honest thing to do is, if they actually get out of hell, it's established that they're only out of there because they're thinking it. That you can't escape from hell. So if he's gonna go to stay in hell to be with his wife, it should have ended that way. I think that would have been brave. It would have been hard, but I think in some way it would have redeemed this character, because, okay, if he is as controlling and insufferable and arrogant as he's been for the first, second, and now the third act of the movie, then let's have it be a noble thing that he's not going to leave her here. Because is there anything more awful than leaving the love of your life in hell?
Yeah, but he doesn't leave her.
No, he stays with her. I'm just saying, like, what I'm saying is, like, I think there's something that is a very noble act. And I think a braver film would have ended there. And if you want to do a thing like, they embrace each other, they're in the darkness, they're both lost, but then there's like a flashback to that time where they were all soaking wet, washing a car together, and then the movie there. Which
end it with a flashback from Earth.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that's so pessimistic, but it's one thing if the ending just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense how they escape. It doesn't make any sense that they escape unscathed, especially since, by the way, there's no God in this world. There's no devil in this world. So why is there any kind of poetic justice or even a forced ending? There needs to be something more than she snaps out of it and just, clap your hands. I do believe in fairies. Like, it's not enough. It feels like this movie is missing a couple minutes, if anything. Like, it feels like there should be more establishing how we get to that ridiculously insufferably happy ending.
Yeah, I agree. Because if she snaps out of it, does she only have 3 minutes to snap him out of it before she goes crazy again? Right. You know what I mean?
And what is a minute in hell, by the way?
Well, exactly. They talk about how there's no time, and then he gives them a time limit.
You've got 3 minutes in dog years or in leap years? Like, what? How long was he in there with her?
Who knows? Yeah, that's a really good point. And then if she can even, maybe a better ending would have shown her rescuing him for once.
I completely agree.
Because, like, in your mind that that's what happened, but they don't show it. So we have no idea how she does it, and I think except that she thinks it.
Yeah, and it's just not enough. This movie is like, if you think it, you are it. It's just not enough. And I know this is a cerebral world, but again, because the rules are muddy and they seem like they're made up on a scene-to-scene basis, it just doesn't connect emotionally. It should connect to us emotionally. It's weird because, to go back to Ghost, I mean, the scenes where the black shadows jump out. Those scenes, they're silly now, but I gotta say, like, they're disturbing and they're weird and they work. They work within that movie. And when, and when Sam Wheat is finally visible to Molly,
and the light opened up.
and Unchained Melody becomes an orchestral bit,
and he says, "I can feel the love."
And my favorite scene in the movie, which has always moved me for a weird reason to talk about Ghost. It's the scene where Oda Mae, played by Whoopi Goldberg in the role where she won the Oscar, deservedly so, where Whoopi Goldberg says, can't you see I'm not a fake, not about this. I'm like, oh, that's a big moment for that character. And she pushes the penny under the door, and the penny is the penny. I love that stuff because, again, like, that movie, as silly as it is, and it's silly, it establishes those rules.
It does.
We see painstakingly how Sam has to learn these things.
We're also still on Earth, where there's logic, sort of. You know?
And I gotta say, to What Dreams May Come, to the credit of this film, this is one of the few movies that's set in heaven that I actually like.
Yeah.
Because most of these movies, they're walking around these sets where there's dry ice everywhere and there's cottony billowy and everybody's dressed in robes.
Well,
it's always so awful.
This isn't any kind of heaven that you would read about. I mean, we talked about Dante's Inferno and a little bit, and you can find some descriptions in some literature that he's pulled from random places. And like Renaissance paintings, they have that one in the daughter's room. Remember, it's like the columns and the stairs and the people flying, and she says, "Oh, is this what heaven looks like?"
Yeah.
And the dad's kind of like, "I don't know." And then they have to put the dog down, and she's like, "Well, where's the dog gonna go?" And she's like, "Well, where we all go." So it's like no characters really think about the afterlife until they get there, and they're like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
So I don't know. To me, it's a very dreary, sad afterlife experience.
It's just like there should be more dogs in this world, or cats.
Oh yeah, because
there should be more animals.
Their dog is the only one there.
The only one.
Maybe it's because the other dogs are in their own universes with their families.
Well, the other dogs, they all committed suicide. So see that this is the dog that was worthy of being in heaven. And now, like, the dog's name is Katie. So Katie has to go to hell to save all the other dogs.
Katie was euthanized, so I don't even know.
Right. So Katie's like the chosen one. Katie's the only dog worthy of the pearly gates.
No, but if she's euthanized, it's like assisted suicide.
Oh, man. Listen to you. You found a legalistic way. Like, Katie shouldn't even be there.
This is the logic they gave me. I'm not making up these crazy rules.
Yeah, it's goofy.
It is.
No, but yeah. So I mean, since we're done talking about the plot, I mean, there's so much about this film that I admire, and watching it, I mean, it's a fascinating film, but I find it engrossing on a visual level and completely lacking on a story level. I feel like the concept, again, it's very simple. Man goes to heaven, has to go to hell to save his wife. I feel like it can't quite live up to that concept. And for all the moments that work, like there are times where I feel like Cuba Gooding Jr. is hamming it up, but there are also times where he's going toe-to-toe with Williams and he's very good. There are times where I feel like Annabella Sciorra is stuck playing this one-note character, but there are also times where she breaks through it. And I gotta say, I'm so glad she's in this film. I feel like she is the emotional center of the film, more so than Williams.
Definitely.
Whenever they cut back to her, whether it's a flashback or present day, I was always grateful. I feel like she remains eternally underrated as an actress. This movie and Jungle Fever and even The Hand That Rocks the Cradle and Copland, there's so many movies where she's been terrific, and she is terrific in this. This might be her best performance. Mm-hmm. If anything, it's because, I mean, that Williams really found someone who went toe-to-toe with him. But at the same time, it's partly the fault of the way the Williams character is, but I didn't believe that this is the love to end all loves,
Yeah.
And I really needed to believe that.
I mean, they talked about being soulmates, but I don't know. The flashbacks and the few scenes that they had. I mean, there's one where they're like laying at the park and they're looking at clouds and
beautifully shot. Everything about this movie is beautifully shot.
I mean, it was, it's very sweet, but there's nothing really about their chemistry or their relationship that is above and beyond anybody that you would know in real life. I
mean, this is weird, but the same year as this, Out of Sight came out, and George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez in that movie. Just to say that, like, George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez, their chemistry in that movie is electric. That's the thing about that movie. Like, there's a lot of good things about it, but of all people, Jennifer Lopez and George Clooney, they are on fire in that movie.
We've probably mentioned 10 movies that you should watch instead of What Dreams May Come. And you know what? I was not expecting to have all these thoughts and feelings about it, because I remember really loving this movie.
Yeah.
And now I am seeing the plot holes.
I'm still impressed by the film, but yeah, it's a similar thing. I remember even the first time I saw it, I remember just thinking, this film, it's too heavy-handed for all the things about it that are good. I like it. So I get 2.5 stars for me, which is 2.5 stars is kind of the shorthand for me to say it's good. There are good things in the movie. It is, I think, a good film overall, but it doesn't hold up at all under scrutiny. Mm-hmm. And Williams is excellent. Shore is excellent, but they've both been in better films. They've given great performances, and they're great in this, but they've both been better elsewhere. But I mean, if you see it for any reason, see it for Vincent Ward. He is a visionary. He's an amazing filmmaker. I'll say really quickly, this was the last big budget film he ever did. This was kind of like the last big Hollywood film he ever did. He's famous for being he's a filmmaker that studios don't like because his movies are so expensive, and it takes him a lot of time to get the shots that he wants. He's very particular and exact. He famously wrote a script for Alien 3 that was brilliant, involving a wooden planet. Wrap your mind around that.
A wooden planet?
A planet made of wood.
Wow.
And he almost had that film made, and then Fox is like, that doesn't make any sense, wooden planet. It doesn't make any sense at all. So they fired him, but they kept the germ of his script.
Oh, but they didn't have any trouble with this script's plot holes?
Right. Well, he didn't write this one. To his defense, it is Ron Bass who adapted it, but it was his concept. I think it was his concept that the film looks like a painting, because Matheson, the original writer of the novel, his idea was that it's a more traditional kind of heaven. Mm-hmm. So, okay, how many stars would you give it?
Well, since I'm not the film critic, I'm not going to do stars anymore. Oh, it's too stressful. But I would agree with your star rating.
No. I like the 2.5 stars. That's like a C+, B-.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because I think the visuals are great, some stunning set pieces and all of those things. And I do like the story for the most part. It's just that I didn't realize Chris was kind of a jerk, yeah. Kind of a not great husband, yeah. Definitely not a good dad, and
too much Peter Banning, not enough Peter Pan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, that's why it kind of goes. And the logic of this heaven, purgatory, hell world is too wishy-washy. So,
say in heaven, love comes first. Gosh. We'll make heaven a place.
We need to stop before Barry sings any more of that.
Are we gonna get sued?
No, it's less than 30 seconds.
Okay,
I think we're good. All right. Well, that ends our discussion of what dreams may come.